Um, Going to cancer. So you mentioned there's some interesting work being done with respect to ketosis and cancer. What's going on there? And maybe as a starting point, can you just give people a little primer on cancer cell metabolism? Are cancer cells primarily using glucose? Does their metabolism work in a different way from non-cancer cells? And then how does
Mhm.
ketosis tie into that?
Yeah, I think maybe I'd start with one of the imaging technologies that is important for identifying the location and aggressiveness of tumors would be the FDG PET scan. So we have been using that imaging technology for decades to identify cancer, but not using that information to target the tumors. So the more aggressive and metastatic and invasive the cancer, the hotter it is on a fluorodeoxyglucose PET scan. So when you're imaging a tumor and it's much, much higher intensity on a PET scan, that's basically showing glucose uptake in the tumor. And that's what we call essentially the Warburg effect or the Warburg phenotype for the cancer metabolism. So the Warburg effect is you know, I guess it could be described as, I don't want to get too technical, but like impaired mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation with compensatory fermentation. So Warburg, and many people debate this uh, in some ways. We all agree that the Warburg effect happens, but we there's a debate on sort of the reason why it happens. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, to be honest. But the Warburg effect endows cancer cells and the tumor to basically hijack various intermediates and direct them to the expanding biomass of the tumor. So the Warburg effect is essentially using fermentable fuels like glutamine, like glucose and glutamine, as an energy source, but also as biosynthetic precursors for to develop membrane, to develop components of the cell as the cell expands. And the fermentation pathway also allows the tumor to grow in a low oxygen environment, a very low oxygen environment. And if you were to if like for a glioblastoma, for example, a very aggressive tumor, if you were to just like go in there and take a sample of the tumor, what you would see is that all the mitochondria are aberrant in some way. So the mitochondrial structure and the function is significantly changed in cancer cells that present with this Warburg phenomenon. So what that means from a high level, from a translatable level, is that we can target the Warburg effect by decreasing glucose availability, decreasing circulating insulin, which is a growth factor, activates, uh, mTOR pathway and the PI3 kinase pathway is something that has been various drugs being developed for that. And when the tumor is metabolizing these fermentable fuels, it's dumping lactic acid into the microenvironment, and that acidification drives the invasiveness and the growth of the tumor. So limiting glucose availability and fermentable fuels is like the first thing you could do to take your foot off the gas pedal,
Mhm.
right? And ketogenic diets do a number of things. They lower glucose availability, they lower insulin, they lower inflammation, they reduce reactive oxygen species signaling, they decrease inflammatory drivers uh, of the tumor, and they make the tumor more vulnerable to standard of care therapies. That includes chemotherapy, radiation, more recently, immune-based therapies. So even 2 weeks of a ketogenic diet augments the adaptive immune system and
Hmm.
can enhance the ability of certain drugs like checkpoint inhibitors, PD-1 inhibitors in particular, and augment their responsiveness. So there was a study published, I believe, Nature Medicine or Communications, where they compared a vegan diet, which increased the innate immunity, and a ketogenic diet, which greatly augmented the adaptive immunity. And the adaptive immunity is kind of interesting because that has implications for immune therapies, in particular checkpoint inhibitors. So that has actually become a hot area of research in cancer research with ketogenic diets now.
Hmm. So it seems like there's a dual benefit to being in ketosis with respect to cancer. On the one hand, you're sort of minimizing the fuel the cancer itself can use to keep
Yep.
growing, and on the other hand, it seems to enhance some of these therapies we have that attack the cancer.
Yeah. And you could also add that the ketones and being in ketosis protects the normal healthy cells too. So especially if you're getting like radiation therapy,
Mm-hmm.
it's great work was done by Dr. Adrienne Scheck, where she like did whole brain radiation of animals in ketosis, even like without a tumor, and it like protected their brains. Like, without being in ketosis, like all the animals died. And if they're in a state of ketosis, like they all lived. So there's like radiation protection issues there. That's why, organizations like NASA have some interest in ketogenic therapies because their ability to protect against radiation environments, extreme environments, and yeah, the anti-inflammatory effects too, I think are an important component because chemotherapy and radiation produce profound inflammation at the site, at the tumor site, and systemically. And if we can protect the body from the collateral damage from the inflammation, that's going to be like an important thing to do. And the ketones have their own anti-cancer effects, I think, through reducing certain glycolytic pathways. They have neuroprotection, anti-inflammatory effects, and it can be said that some tumor cells may use ketones, maybe not so much as an energy source, but could be incorporated into like lipid biosynthesis. So there are some cells that some types of cancers that may be much more amenable to ketogenic therapies than other types of cancers. And I think we're very interested in like glioblastoma and cancers that are receptive, but I'm equally interested in cancers that are not,
Mm-hmm.
to
And
figure out
understanding
why.
why. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it sounds like there's at least some evidence that at least intermittently going into and out of ketosis could have preventative benefits with respect to cancer.
I think so. Yeah, it hasn't been studied, but you could say that any intervention that would like significantly improve metabolic biomarkers, inflammation, mitochondrial health, you could say that with fasting, you could say that with caloric restriction. Uh, However, I think we believe that, being in a deep state of ketosis, pushing insulin really low, potentially triggering things like autophagy, mitophagy, that this could potentially, target precancerous cells or cancer stem cells, and could also increase the adaptive immune system or enhance the immune system in a way to make the immune system more vigilant in identifying and neutralizing precancerous cells. So there's been, animal work that suggests that, but I'm not sure of any human. Well, the one human study, the 2-week diet intervention showing, big changes in immune markers of adaptive immunity. That was just a pilot study, but yeah, we're hoping to expand on that, working with Moffitt Cancer Center to
Mm-hmm.
to sort of expand upon that with checkpoint inhibitors.
Mm-hmm. It's no secret that many people are over consuming sugar in general. Obviously, that ties into the cancer stuff we were just talking about. That ties into insulin resistance. It ties into just general health. You definitely don't want to be consuming too much sugar, but added sugars are in all sorts of things. What is your general view on sugar substitutes? Everything from so-called non-caloric sweeteners, things like Splenda, to other sugar alternatives. Are they actually better? Are we substituting one bad thing for a different type of bad thing? Are there any good, truly healthy sugar substitutes?
Yeah, glad you asked that. I'm of the opinion that artificial sweeteners like saccharin, aspartame, sucralose are a better alternative, are a suitable alternative to sugar in different foods. I don't think they're ideal, but I don't think it's like the lesser of two evils, right? So I don't think there's any, beneficial effects. But I think the data supporting that they are the data supporting that they're pathological or bad in some way. I just don't think the data is there, especially in regards to cancer. I think there was a lot of discussion about aspartame and cancer And I did a deep dive. Actually, we did like a little social post with the Moffitt Cancer Center CEO. And I think, I know aspartame, I believe, was designated potential cause of cancer, but so are other things, like other food things that we eat. Uh, so I'm not too concerned with artificial sweeteners, but I think we should limit them because I do think they have an impact on our brain's desire for hyperpalatable foods. And I think they could
Mm.
stimulate brain pathways, dopaminergic pathways, maybe to seek sweeter foods. So I think the jury's still out. The effects on the microbiome, I think, are still under investigation. And I think it's safe to say that they're not completely benign in regards to changing the microbiome. So they can change the microbiome, but it's not entirely clear whether that could be pathological or maybe even beneficial.
Hmm.
I am a big fan of allulose. So allulose is an epimer of fructose. It uses the glucose 5 transporter, and there are some types of cancer cells that overexpress the GLUT5 transporter. And we're doing some experiments in our lab now to looking at it in the absence and presence of allulose and getting some interesting data to suggest that allulose could be potentially used in a ketogenic diet formulation as a sugar, a natural sugar-based alternative. So it's a rare sugar. It's not artificial. It's found in things like figs and some fruits and maybe kiwi. So allulose consumed at 20 grams in a single bolus is probably like your tolerability limit. So if you want to incorporate allulose, I would suggest, start with like 5 grams and work up from there.
What do you mean by
But
tolerability?
so the ability to absorb allulose in the gut is contingent upon the presence of the GLUT5 transporter. So if you're
Mm.
not sufficiently absorbing it all, it could cause an osmotic shift, give you diarrhea. Maybe it's fermentable, gives some people some gas. But I think of all the different sweeteners out there, artificial and natural, I think allulose is the most promising for a number of reasons that it is a natural sugar. It's kind of self-limiting in that you can't like it's not hyper palatable. So it
Hmm.
has a nice mild sweet taste, but it's not like super hyper sweet like sucralose. It's transported through the GLUT5 transporter because it's an epimer of fructose, which uses the GLUT5, and it lowers blood glucose, which is very interesting. So I wear a CGM and I consume allulose, and my glucose actually goes down.
Hmm.
It has very little, if any, insulin response, which is another benefit. And and I think a lot of people are very interested in allulose because it triggers the release of GLP-1.
Hmm.
So there's a Nature Communications paper showing that an equivalent of the human equivalent would be like me consuming, I think, 30 or 40 grams, but there was a 500% increase in the release of GLP-1. So I think, and people do report it has a appetite suppressing effect. So you have this rare sugar that's mildly sweet, lowers blood glucose, has virtually no insulin response, and is a GLP-1 mimetic, almost like a natural Ozempic. So
Hmm.
there are reasons why I'll have to disclose that I am a research advisor for the company RX Sugar, and they make allulose products. I was slow to come on board, but the thing that got me on board was the peer-reviewed literature. I was like, I want to study this. So we're studying it from the context of from the cancer research right now because I think it could be we have a potential natural sugar that could further enhance ketogenic therapies, make them more palatable and make them more efficacious, especially in cancers that overexpress the GLUT5 transporter.
Hmm.